Mythic! Mythic with a 4 rare deck. Let's go. Yeah! Smashing. Let's go. Hey, it's Mythic Mike. We're going to be looking at my top 30 bangers from the new standard set, Duskmourn, coming out very shortly. I'll be playing in early access in a couple days. We're going to break these things, but let's get into the cards. One of my first and favorite cards, Overlord of Baelmerk. What were they thinking, guys? They're breaking Magic cards these days. This is a really cool card. It's an enchantment creature. So there's a mechanic in this set called Eerie where when enchantments come into play, you get a benefit. So the fact this enchantment is relevant, and you pay 5 mana to make a 5/5. Whenever Overlord the Baelmerk enters or attacks, mill 4 cards, then return a non-Avatar creature, this is an Avatar, or a Planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. So mill 4 and get back a creature or a Planeswalker every time it enters and attacks. But you don't have to play it for 5 because that would be pretty terrible. You can play it for 2 and get these impending value, which means it comes in and it's not a creature. It's just an enchantment sitting on the battlefield for 4 turns because it comes in with 5 counters and you lose a counter at the beginning of your end step. And then when it's out of counters, it becomes a 5/5 creature. But when you pay the impending, an enchantment still enters for Eerie, and it'll still mill 4 cards and return a non-Avatar creature or Planeswalker. So the reason this is broken, this is a mill 4, get the best thing from your graveyard, because it says from your graveyard, not from the milled card. So in any self mill, this is like a mill 3, get any card from your deck partway through, which is insane, and an enchantment that's a permanent enters. And 4 turns later, which happens a lot, for free, you're just going to get this 5/5 that'll then keep on doing it and give you infinite card advantage. Every time it attacks, it'll do it again. So this is broken in any mill strategy, including a reanimator. It'll find you what you want from your graveyard all the time. Because again, like midway through the game, you have 20 things in your graveyard. This will mill more, and you get the best thing from your graveyard, not just the milled cards. Absolutely busted. I do have a question for my viewers, actually. Because this has 5 mana, if you pay it for its impending cost, which is only 2, it says if you cast a spell for its impending cost, it enters with 5 time counters and isn't a creature. Does it still come in as a 5 mana spell? And the reason I asked that is because for Up the Beanstalk, there's already a deck with Up the Beanstalk and a lot of the mill creatures that get cheaper. If you have more creatures in your graveyard, you play them for cheap. These creatures that cost less, but they still trigger Up the Beanstalk, which is a card that already existed, enters. When it enters, draw a card, and then when you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. So it already works with big mill creatures. But my question is, where is it? Does it work with this? Does impending mean the 5 mana spell enters? So we draw a card from Up the Beanstalk? Because if so, watch out for that deck. It's broken. Let me know your thoughts. All right, I'm going to go through all of black right now. One of my other cards that I just love is Cyclical Loner. Some of these cards I'm not 100% sure are going to be broken, but I'm going to definitely try them out. I think they're very fun. So this is a 2 mana uncommon budget banger, Human Survivor. It can't be blocked by Glimmers, which are these little enchantment creatures. So it has Survival, which is a mechanic, which is if your creature's tapped after combat, you get a benefit. In this one, if it's tapped after combat, you may search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. So Reanimator, you automatically get the card in your graveyard. But there's also, like, I play Skeletons where you can play them back from your graveyard, or Ashnet's Harvester where you can play it back from your graveyard with Unearth. Pretty sick. There's a lot of cards you can do stuff from your graveyard. And so if you have a way to tap this, which by the way, there's so many ways to tap these things. I won't go through them every time, but there's like a green guy that taps a creature for mana. There's all the mounts, there's vehicles, there's convoke things that tap things. There are spells that say tap creatures. There's a new green spell that says tap 1 or 2 of your own creatures and deal damage to any opponent's creature. There's so many ways to tap things. You can actually tap this, gain benefit, and get the survival without attacking, which you can do as well. So this is going to be a very, very cool card. I'm excited to break it. Enduring Tenacity. Whenever you gain life, this is a 4 mana enchantment creature, Snake Glimmer. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. We already have like a bat thing that when you gain life, opponent loses life. And then when this dies, if it was a creature, it stays around as an enchantment, so you don't really kill it. I think this is going to enable some really cool life gain strategies where you just gain a ton of life and smash them. You probably will need some ramp to make this worthwhile, so we'll see if this is actually good, but I think it is a fun build around that we're definitely going to try. Nowhere to Run. I'm really, really excited for this card. So there's already a benefit for having permanence, right? There's the Viper that you can sacrifice permanence. There's the benefit to have enchantments because of Eerie. And this is a 2 mana flash enchantment, uncommon, Nowhere to Run. When Nowhere to Run enters, target creature and opponent controls get -3/-3. So we're messing up these slick shot decks. The -3/-3 is really nice. The Mice and Cacophony don't do damage because we make its power less. Buffing their power won't, this kills indestructible too. Also, this says creatures your opponent control can be targets of spell and ability, although they don't, as if they don't have hexproof. So hexproof doesn't work, which is coming up. There's a lot of spells that give hexproof. Ward doesn't trigger. Very, very cool. We're going to be breaking this. I'm thinking of a skeletons deck with corpses and this and things that benefit from enchantments. Yes, please. All right. Let's see. It's hard to read that, so I'll just read it. I don't know why Moxfield has this weird setup, but this is a new thing called a room. You can play either side, and then you can play the other side later as well. For one side, 3 mana Unholy Annex, and it's at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. Then for 5 mana, you can play the other side, even after it's already down. And when you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature with flying. So you make the demon that you need. What's pretty cool is there is a 2 mana demon that's really bad, but there's the 4 mana demon, the 6/6 flyer. There's a 1 mana white goat in this set that can turn into a demon. I'm not sure this is great, but we're going to have a lot of fun playing around, because if you get a demon down and then play Unholy Annex and they don't kill your demon, you're drawing an extra card and you're gaining 2 life and they're losing 2 life every turn. And then in a few turns, you can just make a 6/6 demon with the same card. And even if you don't have a demon, you're drawing a extra card and losing 2 life. There are worse things. So we're definitely going to try this out. Out of all the cards I've shown so far, this is the one I'm not sure will be actually great, but we're going to give it our all. All right. You have to do a lot to get me interested in Reanimator, because it's not my cup of tea, but I think this card did it. This is a 9 mana Valgaroth Terror Eater, legendary creature, Elder Demon, flying lifelink. So it's like a Troxa, right? The lifelink. And it's a 9/9. And it has Ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. So if they're playing a control deck without non-land permanents, they cannot even target this. Board wipes still work, whatever. And if a card you don't control we put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So when you kill their stuff, and then during your turn, you may play cards exiled with this. And if you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than its mana cost. So you can play their stuff just paying life. And this has lifelink. Very cool. I mean, there's a lot of easy Reanimators in this deck, and there's one you can play something from your hand. So, I mean, this will be super fun. And there's plenty of ways to give things haste in reanimation strategies. And I mean, a 9/9, pretty much untargetable flying lifelink that does other stuff. I'm definitely, and in black. I'm not a big Atrox person. I don't like playing all those colors, but we're giving this a try. Talking about ways to reanimate, this is a fun one. We're definitely going to try it. 1 mana, 1/1, human cleric. And just for 4, you sacrifice this. It has to be a sorcery, but return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So just for turn 1, you put this down. Turn 4, you just get this back if you milled it. I mean, they'll have to kill it, right? So very, very interesting. And we, look, Mono Black Reanimator is on the menu. So moving over to white, we've got some fun ones. Enduring Innocence, the 3 mana enchantment creature, Sheep Glimmer. It has lifelink, which is important. Whenever one or more other creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, and there's ways to get creatures for free each turn, like counters and stuff, draw a card. But it only triggers once each turn. You can't use Delny on this because that line makes it only happen once, even if you use Delny. And when this dies, it doesn't really die. It stays around as enchantment, so still lets you draw cards off creatures with power 2 or less. This is an enchantment as well, which goes with the Eerie strategy, and I think is going to draw you a ton of cards. The lifelink's huge. You just chunk block with it, and my God. And also, where is it? Is this it? This goes perfectly with it. This is a broken card. 1 mana, uncommon, Human Scout, Eerie. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So if this is in play, and we play this, we can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, put it on this, now it's a 3/2 lifelink. My God, the draws cards. Pretty sick. Again, you can play the bad and put counters from this on the bad and lifelink creatures. This is going to get broken. If you put 2 enchantments in from 1 card, which happens, it's going to get 2 counters. We're going to be breaking this. Another enchantment thing that's just broken, enchant creature, 1 mana aura. Auras are back, by the way. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and first strike. So look, we're putting all these in a deck with a bunch of enchantments. This is going to give like something. I mean, we put it on this. We have a lifelink 7/7 or whatever, right? We can put it on flyers. It's going to be crazy. Another aura that's pretty sick, a better Snakeskin Veil. 1 mana aura, flash, enchant creature you control. And if it entered this turn, enchanted creature has hexproof. And enchanted creature gets +1/+1 forever. There's ways to flash back enchantments to put them back in your hand with some new cards and with Pixie. So then you can hold in your hand to have the hexproof again. We're cooking. We're cooking. One of the best auras. So the biggest thing about auras is you could get blown out, right? So if you play an aura on something and they kill your creature, you lose the creature and the aura you were going to put down, and they only lose the spell they used to kill it. So Wizards finally realized this and said, fine, if you're going to 2 for 1 us when you kill a creature, when we get it down, we're going to 2 for 1 you. And this card does that. 2 mana enchantment aura and enchant creature you control. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So you're telling me we can kill anything, artifact, enchantment, temporary, insane, until this leaves. And they have to kill an enchantment, right? Or I guess the creature it's on, right? But that's insane. And it's a 2 for 1 because we took their best thing for 2 mana, and enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and lifelink and ward 2. So we just made our big boy a lifelink ward 2 harder to hit. And imagine, I mean, I've also made decks with like the green creatures that have ward 2, and then you pretty much guarantee you get this down. We're cooking, baby. You get this down, you're 2 for 1 and you are far ahead. Very fun. And it goes with all these other cards, right? With the enchantment Eerie theme. Split up, my God, what have they done? 3 mana sorcery, just choose one, destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. At least it doesn't exile, but this is a board wipe you can use in aggro decks. So I'm actually kind of pumped because we can tap all our creatures, and there's a bunch of ways, right? Convoke and stuff, or the 1 mana 1/2 human guy, or just attacking in and then kill all their creatures left up for blockers, just one-sided. Or if they attack in, all our creatures are untapped. We kill all their creatures and then we attack in. It's going to be pretty crazy. One of my favorite cards. Some people didn't think it was going to be that good, but I think it's going to be awesome. 5 mana legendary creature, Human Samurai, the Wandering Rescuer. Flash Convoke, so you can play with creatures instead of its mana. So tap 5 white creatures, and you just paid this for free. Double strike, so it's a 3/4, so it does 6 damage. Other tapped creatures you control have hexproof, not just from this, which means you can play things that tap creatures at instant speed to just give them hexproof. But if they try to kill one of your creatures, you have this in your hand, you play it, you tap a creature to convoke it, this comes down, and then you just saved a creature and got this down because you gave it hexproof. I think you're going to have to try to play this in a deck with a lot of vigilance because you're not going to want to hold up blockers just to play this. Or obviously the Boros Convoke type things. But I think also there is like an instant spell, give a creature double strike or untap your creatures at instant speed. That'll be pretty cool, right? Where you like attack with all your creatures and you hold up and you untap all your creatures and you play this for free. And, I mean, pretty cool stuff. We're going to make it work. All right, last white card, Broken. 1 mana, Veteran Survivor, uncommon. We're getting a humans mono white deck going, by the way, for sure, early on. Survival. If this is tapped after combat at the beginning of your second main phase, exile 1 target card from a graveyard. So we can mess up their graveyard, by the way, just with this. That's great in and of itself, and it's a 2/1. But as long as there are 3 or more cards exiled with Veteran Survival, it gets +3/+3 in hexproof. So a 5/4 hexproof. And so all it has to do is be tapped 3 turns in a row. And then it's just like, my God, our 1 mana card. By the way, exiling things from graveyards is good in and of itself. So it's not like that was hard to do. And we can like tap it with like our 1/2 guy that taps creatures to give it counters. So there's a bunch of fun things to do here. Delney will make this go off twice. We're cooking, baby. We're cooking. All right, on to blue. We got Abhorrent Oculus, 3 mana Eye. And as an additional cost to cast this spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. That'll be a little tough. There's mill strategies that can pull this off. And it's a flying 5/5. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, so at the start of their turn, Manifest Dread, which is a new mechanic, you put down a card from the, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you put 1 card down as a 2/2, face down, and then you can turn it up for its mana value if you want later. And the other card you put in your graveyard, which helps Reanimator or mill strategies as well. So this is just making 2/2s every turn. Very sick. Now, what I like about this is this can be hit with Helping Hand or any of those cards that reanimate a creature with 3 or less. Then you don't have to pay the cost to exile. It can be copied with Mockingbird, and you don't have to pay the cost. So we're cooking. We're cooking here. I'm not sure we're going to play it out of our hand that often, but we're definitely going to be playing it. All right, Entity Tracker. You know we're putting this with skeletons. 3 mana, and it's a human scout. Flash 2/3, and it has Eerie, so whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, draw a card. Every time corpses go down, we draw a card. Every time our 2 mana case goes down, you draw a card. Every time any of those 1 mana enchantments go down, you draw a card. If we make 2 enchantments in a turn, we draw 2 cards. This is going to be super fun. We already had a good black-blue deck. It's going to go right in it. Talk about another one, Fear of Isolation. 2 mana Pixie. Pixie's the white card that's existed where you can put a permanent back in your hand. This one forces you to. It says an additional cost to cast a spell, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. Obviously, there's a bunch of permanents we want to return to our hand because they have ETBs or they kill a creature when they enter. The black enchantment that gives a creature -3/-3, we're going to want to return to our hand. Corpses we like to return to our hand to play it again. Yes, and this is a 2/3 flyer, and it's an enchantment creature itself, so it triggers Eerie. My God, we're busting this wide open, baby. All right, my last blue card. I do think this is just very fun. We'll see if it's good. 2 mana Human Detective, uncommon. Whenever you manifest Dread, so normally you look at 2 cards, you put 1 as a 2/2 on the battlefield and 1 in your graveyard. This says instead of putting the card in your graveyard, you put it in your hand. So then every manifest Dread is a put a 2/2 down and draw a card. And this is a 1/3 that can do some blocks. I think we can cook with this. We're definitely going to give it a try. All right, on to red. We just have a few in red. Some of these, you know, will be unexpected, but I really do think they're good. I think this is sick. First of all, it's an enchantment. That's relevant, Eerie. 3 mana, Fear of Being Hunted, uncommon. It's a 4/2 haste. They don't make those. And everyone's getting this wrong. People are really, really bad at thinking. I'm sorry. I'm just letting you know. They see this next line of text and they view it as a negative. It says Fear of Being Hunted must be blocked if able. So they're like, oh, my 4/2 without trample has to be blocked. I guarantee you if this was a 3 mana enchantment creature with haste, so it's a 4/2, without that line of text, they'd be like, oh my God, awesome. This line of text is a positive. Usually you give your opponent a choice, and I know sometimes they could make the wrong choice, but you don't want to bank on opponents making the wrong choice. This forces a choice. So they're going to have to block even when it's suboptimal, when it's their bat that has a creature, when it's something they need. So, and against control, we're still going to get through. You can still play Monstrous Rage on this or give it trample. This is a good card, and that line of text makes it even better because it removes a choice, which is always a positive. Grab a prize, sick card. 2 mana, sorcery, common. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. This says draw 2 cards. If a discarded card wasn't a land, this deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's a little shock to the face, and you discard a card, which sometimes you like because you like things in your graveyard or for a reanimator. But even if you don't, you can discard a non-land. You can discard a land and draw 2, which is always fine. You can discard a non-land that wasn't amazing, deal 2 damage to their face, and then get 2 new cards, which is really, really good. This triggers prowess, and it does a whole lot on a card. You'll be shocked at how this is going to really synergize, especially when you have Reanimator or things you can play back from the graveyard, which definitely exist. We'll get into shortly. Screaming Nemesis, a very nice card. 3 mana, Spirit, Haste. When it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target, including their face. And if a player's dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. Are you joking me? Even if this dies. So all we have to do is like shock this, and they can never gain life the rest of the turn, and it deals 2 damage to their face. So if we play a shock on this, we deal 2 damage to them because this redirects the damage, and they can never gain life again. Plus it's a 3/3 haste. Yeah. Ancillary, not only life gain decks, like ancillary life gain is going to be rough these days. Very sick. All right, green. We are making a pretty big comeback with green here. This is one of the more fun ones that we'll see if it's good, but it is relevant. 5 mana, Worm. It can't be countered, and it has Trample and Haste 5/5. We haven't had a good Trample Haste big boy, especially that can't be countered, for a minute. The 4/4 one that has like Ward something, it doesn't have Trample. It's trash. And it has this Delirium, which is a set mechanic. It's hard. I'm not super banking on Delirium, but it is interesting. 4 mana. We can return it from the graveyard, so it comes in as a Trample Haste for 4 mana with a finality counter on it. Activate only if there are 4 more card types, like creature, enchantment, instant sorcery, those types of things, among cards in your graveyard, and only as a sorcery. Maybe in a self-mill, though. We'll see. This is interesting. Very interesting. One of my favorite cards that I think people are missing is Defiant Survivor, 3 mana, Human Survivor, uncommon. Should have been a rare. Wizards never knows how good their cards are going to be. This is going to be epic. This has survival, so if it's tapped after combat, you manifest Dread. You put a card in your graveyard, and you put one from. You look at 2 cards. One goes in your graveyard, one goes down as a 2/2, and you can always flip it up later for its mana cost. And this is a 3/2. So even as a 3/2 that makes a 2/2 and mills 1 every turn, that is broken, right? Now, how are you going to tap this every turn? There's the 1 mana green guy, like I said, that taps for mana. There's mounts. There's the 2 mana mount that mills things that goes with it. There's a green spell that taps your thing. We're going to be able to do it. There's Convoke. We're gonna break this thing. Don't you worry. This is interesting. I'm usually not interested in ramp, but this kind of makes me interested in ramp. 3 mana, Enduring Vitality, enchantment, creature, vigilance, 3/3. And creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. My God, Atrox is getting played every second, isn't it? But when this dies, we return it. So it's an enchantment still that has that ability where all your creatures have mana. So that doesn't go away unless this is exiled. We're going to have some fun kind of ramping out to that. Kona Rescue Beastie. My God, what have they done? I think Wizards has not understood how easy survival is to trigger. Like I said, this is 4 mana legendary creature, Beast Survivor. It's a 4/3, but at the beginning of your second main phase, including the turn it enters, if we just tap this, which there's many ways to do with 0 mana. If this is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Permanent. The world tree thing or whatever, the blue spell that plays cards for free. Atroxa, that 9 mana lifelink black creature I showed. They have to kill this at instant speed, a 4/3, or they're like dead if you have a creature in your hand. It's bad. We'll see if I like this still. Oh, that was one I had here, not for that. All right, on to the multicolors. We have I don't think we have any, not colors, but Arabella, one of the most fun cards. I'm gonna make a deck with it right away in early access. Super pumped. Artifact creature toy. Dowsing device will give this haste. I'm bringing back dowsing for sure. It's an uncommon. Oh my god. And it's a 1/3, and whenever this attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. So there was like a rat thing or a squirrel that did this for like certain creature types, but this is even better than that. And it's uncommon, and it's an artifact. My god, we're just gonna have a bunch of, you have 5 like 1/1s, and this is doing 1 damage from attacking, but also gaining 5 life and doing 5 damage. And we could even give this haste like with dowsing device to make it do it the turn it enters. And Delny will double the triggers. Delny is a 3-mana white human that doubles triggers of creatures with power 2 or less. And it's in the Boros Convoke, make 1,000,000 creatures colors. Oh my god. All right. We're going to make a deck. It's going to be sick. I do have a question for you guys. How does it work with Adam Pakel? Adam Pakel says, this is a card that says, whenever you attack with 1 or more non-gnome creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on Adam Pakel, then create X/1/1 colorless gnome artifact creatures that are tapped and attacking, where X is the number of counters on it. If we have both of these out and we attack with a creature, or if we attack with Arabella, will this attack trigger that deals damage equal number of creatures we have go off before we make the Adam Pakel triggers? I think they might, because this has to make a counter and then make creatures, but they're both attack triggers. Can you reorder them so that you'll make the Adam Pakel creatures first, and then that'll make more creatures to do more triggers with this from the same attack trigger? Let me know in the comments. I am unsure. Okay, so Inquisitive Glimmer, awesome card. 2 mana, enchantment spells, cast 1 less. We know how broken this is. There was a green-white one. Unlock of the rooms, where you unlock the doors, shown, or 1 less. And it's a 2/3 enchantment creature. Not bad stats. Gonna be broken. You'll see. This is more of a fun one, but I'm gonna try in an Arabella deck. I don't think it's that good. There's only one other thing that makes gremlins, and it's not that good. There's a 2/2 gremlin, and there's a white-blue new thing that makes gremlins when you cast enchantments. It's kind of hard to add blue, and we'll see. But this is an uncommon 4-mana sorcery. Create 3 1/1 red gremlin creature tokens. Gremlins have menace, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. I wish it wasn't until end of turn. But if you have something that buffs your tokens or creatures, they could be like 2/2, right? Like a War Leader's Call. And then this on turn 4, you get, you'd make 3 2/2s with lifelink and menace and haste, and you deal 3 damage because War Leader's Call deals damage when a creature enters. And we might have Arabella out, which even helps more. Interesting. I'm not sure, but we're going to definitely try it. Nashi, again, a fun one just because I have a lot of great rats decks. I'm not sure if it's going to make the cut, but we're going to give it a try. 2 mana, Rat Ninja Wizard, Menace. When it deals combat damage, which is always a tough trigger, although it does have Menace, you mill that many cards. You may put any number of legendary or enchantment cards. I just made a rat skeleton deck, and corpse is an enchantment, so that's pretty cool. From among them into your hand. If you put no cards in your hand this way, put a +1/+1 counter. Interesting. Not sure it'll make the cut, although I do like blue-black rats the best. Well, it's a fun one. Similarly, I already have a blue-black skeletons deck. Will this make the cut? Because the thing about skeletons is they like enchantments, because corpses and cases are enchantments, and there's a bunch of enchantment things that are good for enchantments. So then we kind of want more enchantments, not necessarily another skeleton, but we'll see. This will be buffed by corpses. 2 mana, 1/4, insect skeleton, uncommon, skull tap, nuisance, and it's flying. It'll be a 2/4 haste with corpses, and eerie when an enchantment enters. And whenever you fully unlock a room, surveil 1. Surveil is good to get corpses back or get skeletons in your graveyard. We'll see. I am hesitating about this card, but I had to show you the rat and skeleton because I've been playing in a lot of those decks, and we'll see if they can meet the cut, to be determined. And then our last card of the day, Undead Sprinter. I'm pumped, baby. Trample Haste, Zombie. Rakdos. I love Rakdos. It's not legendary. You may cast it from your graveyard if a non-zombie creature died this turn. If you do, it comes in as a 3/3 because it has a counter on it. Also, remember, you can put any card in your graveyard you want from your library. So, like, you can be tapping this and just filling your library with undead sprinters. And there's like the skeleton that dies when they can come back when a non-skeleton dies. But we could have this in like Rakdos skeletons with Cyclical Loner. And then whenever a skeleton dies, we bring back all of these as 3/3 haste. We're gonna be cooking. Well, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna be on early access and I'm gonna be making sick bangers when the full set comes out. Remember to like and subscribe for some unique decks. Let's go, baby.